Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another great update for you from the brand Seiko. They were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, I'm sure you can tell this is a chronograph. Some key common characteristics in design language you're looking for a chronograph is, of course, those external pushers that activate timing functions, multiple subdials to measure elapsed time, often featuring additional scales depending on the subgenre. This is the Prospex SSC909 Speedtimer Solar, and this is a 1,000 piece limited edition, and it is pretty sweet. I'm surprised there hasn't been more videos of this just because of how interesting the color combination is on this one. I think it's actually really appealing. This was lent in from Belmont Watches here locally in San Diego. These go for $700 MSRP, or you can get it from Belmont for $600. Yes, check the link down in the description if that sounds enticing to you. Saving $100 on a pretty desirable watch that chances are if you go to an AD and try to get a deal on it, they're not going to give you much of a discount. Typically the Prospex stuff moves pretty quick, especially when it comes to these types of limited editions. So kudos to Belmont for offering that great little discount there. So yeah, you guys have seen this watch before. I've reviewed it. It's been on other things, you know, in terms of the Speedtimer. I did the Panda model, which was also lent in from Belmont. But I was excited to see that they got this piece in stock because it just has such a cool look. That dial is really dynamic. It's kind of this steel grayish blue that can kind of transition from a really pale blue to you know, almost like a blue slate, which is really cool. And then also that black coating on those center links also has some really interesting light play, where here it looks very dark, but out in the light you can actually get it to, you know, look quite faded. And it's pretty odd how much, you know, light play this has, especially considering that it's a solar watch, so it's all about being powered by light. So that's just a lot of fun. So that was a little bit of a long intro, so let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, let's take a look at that dial, which is really the showstopper here. I love the tone, the how vibrant that sun ray is. It's really gorgeous. And let's go ahead, while we're here, let's go ahead and at least start the chronograph. And so this isn't a mecha chorus, it's not mechanical, so these pushers are more so buttons versus, you know, mechanical pushers, so you're not going to get that satisfying click or anything like that, but it's pretty cool, I gotta say. So one thing I did notice is you actually can do some really interesting functions. So you go like that, if you press that twice, you start it, stop it, start it again, right, snap it all the way back to the beginning. But you could also have it start going, press, keep it going again, stop, talk, right, we're doing whatever. And what it's going to do is going to jump to where it would have been. Isn't that cool? So that is something, you know, that is actually very desirable, to be able to, you know, get that time. You could say you're writing down a time, elapsed time, and then still be able to continue and see where you're at. So very cool. It's fun to play with. I mean, obviously not quite as, oh, sorry about that. Not quite as, as satisfying in terms of the tactile engagement with the pushers, but it's a lot of fun, right? So that's something I just wanted to cover from a functional standpoint. Of course, this is more within that kind of road racing, motorsports vibe, so you're going to get the tachymeter scale on that bezel, which is blacked out. I think it looks great. I love this case shape. Obviously, having the more squared sides and of the lugs is going to mean that it's going to be an absolute strap monster. So if you did want to put this on, you know, a perforated kind of rally style leather, I think it'd look really right at home with it. Also, you do get this great black coating on the center links, which does tie the theme together, right? You're getting the black subdials, the black bezel, now the black center links. It just gives it a really unique look, and honestly, it looks kind of expensive. Like, it just gives it a richness there, which is nice. And one of the great things people like about Seiko is typically they look more expensive than they are, although prices have gone up. This does look like an expensive piece to those who don't know. So I do like that. It does add a little bit more of just that extra sizzle, right? The steak's always been there with Seiko, but they're adding a little bit of sizzle to kind of draw you in, which I can appreciate. So getting into the details, this is a 39 millimeter diameter watch, so it's going to wear absolutely fantastic. Only 13.4 millimeters thick, and that is one of the benefits of having this be a quartz watch versus a mechanical watch. It's going to be much thinner than a mechanical chronograph would be. Lug to lug, extremely short at only 45.5 millimeters, although the male end links do protrude slightly. They're at such a downturn that honestly I wouldn't even worry about any additional, kind of ultimate lug width there. Full stainless steel, you're getting brushed and polished, and let me give a quick little wipe to some of the polishing here so you guys can, it's not Zaratsu by any means, but it is not a slouch. Like, this is a well finished watch that feels nice and has a nice heft to it, even though it's not mechanical, because it's pretty beefy in the way that it's constructed, and it comes together really, really well for a nice balance of kind of that nice, it just feels substantial still, which is great. And I have some mechanical chronographs that feel extra substantial and very heavy. This is definitely something where it makes sense when you kind of reconcile what you're seeing and what you're feeling. It doesn't have like some weird, odd, like, wow, this feels like it should be heavier type of feeling, which is nice. So then getting into the crown, it's not signed, but it does have a nice little design feature there with the circular little feature there. Really nice knurling. Not that you're ever going to have to use this to screw down or wind the watch up, but it still has a nice feel with the fingers there when you're engaging with it. Nice push-pull crown. Inside, although you can't see it, it's Seiko's quartz movement, solar quartz, the V192, and it's basically has a 6-month power reserve on a full charge, which is great. So you take this out for a couple of days, 2-3 days typically, and it'll have a full charge, and then you don't have to wear it for another 6 months if you want, or you can just leave it indoors and have it staying alive on ambient lighting. And then in terms of the accuracy, you're getting plus or minus 15 seconds per month, and you got to remember that's pretty darn good considering most mechanicals are going to be closer to plus or minus 15 seconds a day, and those are some of the better ones. So of course there are chronometer grade things, and I have watches that keep much better time than that, but honestly 15 seconds fast in a day isn't too bad. I don't like watches being slow at all. I would rather have the variance be plus or minus 0 to 30 versus plus or minus 15. That's just me, just because if the watch is running fast, like I just pull the crown out and hack it, versus anything else. But ultimately my watches stay in a pretty heavy rotation, so I'm typically having to set watches before I wear them. The nice thing about this is actually a grab and go piece, considering that it's quartz and it's just going to be running for you, and as long as you keep it charged, you'll be good to go. And you do get to know that it's not charged, typically just by taking a look at what you got going on the dial. If you're seeing a stutter step in the seconds hand where it's going to go 2 seconds instead of 1, and then you actually can see there's a little gauge there that shows you how much, I believe that's full and then that's empty. It's actually the 60-minute counter is also doubles as kind of a little energy gauge, so pretty cool there as well. Then we get into the dial, which does have some really nicely applied indices. These aren't raised indices punched through the back. These are applied indices. They're not crazy faceted like you would find on a Grand Seiko or an Astron, but they do have a very nice luster and clean polish to them, and they do have a bit of simple faceting that plays with the light really well, and it does look, again, more expensive than it is. Then you get to that dial, which is this really cool pale bluish gray. Then you do have also the date just under the 4 o'clock indice. It's a little deep set, so that's, you know, it's not the most legible date, especially not when you have the minutes hand covering it, but you can see there it's a little bit deep set. It would have been nice if, you know, they worked into the dial a magnifier versus having it on the glass, where it can be a little weird. I think it is kind of cool when brands kind of either will put it underneath the glass to magnify, or even build it right into the date window. That could be cool, or just do no date, and then you don't have to worry about it. And more people will probably, I should say not more people, more enthusiasts will be excited, because the average person predominantly needs a date window. It's like a must-have complication. So you're getting, of course, these black chrono subdials with solar windows. So they're going to be black to the eye, but then if you get like a ton of light on there, you're going to probably be able to see like faint hues of purples, right? You know, if you get like direct light on them, you can kind of see, okay, those are solar windows. Those aren't just blacked out subdials. So I think that's actually kind of smart that they do it that way. It's a way that makes the solar power portion feel a little bit more thought out and more integrated. So I don't mind that at all. And then we get to the hands. They are brushed nicely and look great, except for the second hand, which is painted and looks great as well. And then you do have, of course, Seiko Lume Bright. So this is going to have great luminosity in darkness. 10 bar or 100 meters of water resistance, which again, very good and just what you need, and even more so. So it gives you more peace of mind. You're getting solid links and end links. So nothing folded in here. You can see the actual construction. Instead of it being an actual 3-link, it's actually 2 links. These outer links are connected, and then there's basically a bar, and then the center link snaps over them. So pretty ingenious that they do that, because now you're getting the definition of 2 links, you know, separate metals, because they are separate, and it just reads a lot nicer to the eye and even to the touch. So I appreciate that. And then you get into this 20 millimeter lugs. They're not drilled, but you know, at the same time, this isn't a dive watch or something like that. It would have been nice. I think the drilled lugs would have worked great on here, especially since I do see this being, you know, pretty nice on straps because of the motorsports theme. But with this black center link, it's such a unique look. I doubt anybody who buys this might even want to venture off into putting it on some gorgeous chocolate rally strap. That's a good idea. That would look sweet. Or even a black rally strap with white contrast stitching. Very cool. You do have a pretty standard clasp right here, but the nice thing is everything's fully milled, and you're actually getting some nice contours here. So not sharp, and if you look underneath, you can see, again, rounded, so it'll fit really nicely. You're also going to have you know, one little position for micro adjust there, so you can either go 1 or 2. Even though those 2 holes is basically just one amount of adjustment. So this is a new unworn watch, so I'm not going to, you know, get too crazy in terms of, I'm not going to size it or anything like that, but I will drape it on the wrist really quickly for you guys just to see how it looks. And ooh, you can see on my 7.25/7.5 inch wrist, looks good. I like it. Check that out. Of course, you get a little bit closer to the lens. There's going to be that lens distortion, so I'm going to rest my wrist down here, and I'm just going to bring the shot in a little bit tighter so you guys can get into some of those details and see how it wears without the extra distortion. So looks really great, nice and centered on the wrist, and you can see the black accent on those center links is great. I think that looks really cool, and it's kind of a nice contrast to typically, you know, you might get something like polished center links to have some contrast. Instead, the black brush there, I think it looks really cool, and it really adds just a cool little dimension. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this off the wrist for a quick little Lume shot, a low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. I do have the chrono running just so you guys can get a little bit of movement and play while we close this out. But one thing I like to work into Lume shots is some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, the shade of a tree, or maybe just spending time in your favorite automobile. So it's nice to see what these colors, finishes, and textures render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting, high contrast here that would, you know, typically expose any type of production defects. But you can see the light just glides very uniformly over that brushing, and although not finished to some luxury, again, it's not Grand Seiko, it's not Astron or anything like that, it's not Persage or Prospex LX. This Prospex model is finished really lovely for a steel sports watch. And the Lume, interesting enough, check that out. Look how much the dial just grabs light. There's no direct light there. This is coming off of the ceiling, essentially. And it just has a way of playing. Look at that. Look at the way you're going to transition between the contrasting. Very cool. I dig that. And those, you know, those little faceted and highly polished indices, they hold up, they grab light, they do their job. Check that out. A lot of different lighting situations, and it's still quite legible throughout. So guys, closing thoughts for me on wrist. You know, great proportions, feels very tidy, while still offering, you know, a tone of visual presence. It has that. And I can appreciate that. It's just, there's a lot there, but it doesn't feel cluttered, which is nice. And yeah, proportionally 39mm chronograph, very cool. Like, I'm digging that, absolutely. So in terms of model variants, you know, there's tan, there's blue, there's black dial options available, there's white dial. This is just one of, you know, the limited models. So definitely check those out. In terms of comparable, you know, I'm not heavy into solar quartz watches, so you know, I don't know what I'd really cross shop these against at around $700 MSRP or $600 for that awesome deal through Belmont Watches. Check them out, guys. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if there's a watch you'd cross shop against this. For me, guys, the bottom line, this has all of Seiko's in-house qualities packed into a chronograph, at that kind of handsome panda dial, and it steps it up a notch. It's not just a normal panda, it just has this kind of rich blue slate pale thing going on that I really like. Like, it has this kind of icy effect, and it all plays well off of it. And you know, it's cool. I dig it. It's kind of monochromatic because of the black and white, but at the same time it's adding that pop of color, so it just does something for me. This is a cool looking one. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.